Still at the George Washington University. This time we're in front of the School of Media and Public Affairs. We've been talking to students, young people, about the upcoming elections, and we're actually going to head over to the front of the HQ, headquarters of the IMF, because there is a protest going on, a pro-Palestinian protest. We're going to see if we can talk to one of the protesters and get their thoughts on the election, since the Israel, Gaza, and other geopolitical situations are also going to be hot-button topics for this election that's coming up between former U.S. President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris.
And children being shredded and burned alive by U.S.-made bombs and weapons. How can we live like this? It's time to boycott and sanction Israel. There is no going back from the atrocities that they've committed. The world cannot continue with Israel as it is. You cannot commit massacre after war crime and after war crime, and proudly proclaim what you're doing to the world. They're not even ashamed of it. They're not even hiding it, because they see there are no consequences. They still keep receiving billions and billions and billions of dollars.
What we're trying to do is actually say that international development, if we're talking about international organizations that are forwarding, trying to build schools, hospitals, healthcare, then we actually have to have humanitarian international law, which is currently being shredded by the State of Israel and the United States and many other Western powers who have been funding the genocide in Palestine.
Now, and I understand your stance and what you're saying, but the other side says that Israel is protecting itself against hostile neighbors, reportedly, of course, including Iran and so on, and Lebanon and so on and so forth. What is your response to that Israel has a right to defend itself, which is what has been expressed by the U.S. and the U.K. and other allies of Israel?
Yeah, well, I guess the question is, what's a value of life, right? If we're talking about October 7, we're talking about 1,200 people versus more than 100,000 Palestinians. So what does self-defense actually mean? And why is it that Israel has a right to self-defense, but Palestinians do not, who have been under a siege and an apartheid since 1948? This began with the expulsion of 750,000 Palestinians. Many of the people who are in the resistance today in Palestine were children during that time. This is in our generational lifetime. And it is not okay for a state to continue to perpetuate war crimes on a civilian population and burn, starve, and bomb children alive. If that is the world that we are okay with, then I don't want to be a part of that world. So I will resist that world with every ounce of my being, and that is why I'm here today.
There's an election coming up in a couple of weeks. For you and the rest of the folks that feel this way and are protesting this, are you planning to vote? Folks in your circle, how are you approaching the elections and what it could mean for this conflict?
We live in a two-party cartel. We are literally held hostage by a two-party system that doesn't represent the vast majority of Americans. So I don't even want to talk about who's going to vote. Trump, Harris, they are both for the continuation of the death of children. Children! So no, I don't actually really, at this point, it almost doesn't even matter, because let's be clear, it's not like the president is the one who makes sure that arms go to Israel. That is Congress. And what has happened to Congress? It is bought and sold by AIPAC. So it's not just about the election of the president. This is about all the way down the ballot and who we are as human beings.
Fair enough. So I know I thank you for talking to us. How do you think this all ends? I mean, what is the solution going forward? Do you know the negotiations are ongoing?
Stop the apartheid! End the siege against Palestinian people. That is the only place to start.